I'd like to tell you when I first came up with this concept, I'm going to say 10 years ago, something like that. I really don't know. One of the things that inspired me here, I brought a few different bits and pieces together from my own journey and, my own, I guess, way of looking at these things. But one of the stories that really inspired me with this was people, I guess, 10, 15 years ago, whatever, were getting really into the idea of vision boards and the idea of very specifically turning your dreams and goals into visual representations, like a photo of a holiday resort or a photo of a new car or a new house or whatever it happens to be, and putting all these pictures up on a board, putting it up in the kitchen, and every day going and looking at your vision board and focusing on what you were going to manifest. And it kind of occurred to me that there was a very conscious level to this that was being pushed. For me, I'm really interested in the subconscious, and what's going on under the surface and what's going on while we're busy doing other things. To quote John Lennon, life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans. I've always very much lived by that idea that you can try and control things, you can have all these ideas and whatever, but something will come from left field, something will happen in a different way, and and sometimes it's amazing. But anyway, the vision board idea was being pushed as you've got to really focus on this picture, you've got to look at it all the time, you've got to you give yourself the same affirmations, and you've got to really, really focus. And I kind of felt that that's missing, 99% of the juice of what manifestation and transformation is all about was being missed. And the story that I share with this is a really famous one, which is John Assaraf. A lot of you would have heard of John Assaraf, a kind of famous guy in the personal development world. He was in the movie The Secret, and he tells a story, you probably all heard it. He tells this amazing story of how he's sitting in his house, I think with his son, I think it's his son, one of his children, and he's sitting there with his son and living in this wonderful house, having an amazing life, and he opens up this old box from the attic and he pulls out a vision board from the box. It was his old vision board from years before. And he looks at this picture of this house and he starts to cry. He starts to get really emotional because he's like, this is that house that I'm living in. Now, this is a crazy, crazy story. And that's an amazing story. Not only is he didn't just put a photo of a house on his vision board and manifested a house, he manifested the actual house. Let that one sink in. That's mad. He actually was he didn't realize, but he was living in a house that he had a photo of on his vision board years later. That's crazy. Now, you take from that what you will, but for me, the thing that jumped out more than anything else was that he did not get that house by staring at it on his board every day. He got it by putting it away in a box, putting the box in the attic, forgetting about it, letting go, and years later realizing that he'd manifested that house. Now, I'm sure he did a bit of conscious manifestation, no doubt, but it couldn't have been that conscious because he didn't even know he was in that house. A lot of this happened behind the scenes in the subconscious, okay? And that realization that was always happening in all our lives, that's happening all the time, that was a big motivation for why the dream envelope concept was put together the way that it was. And I really want to get that point across. I think it's so important. There's also some really great evidence of how well this works. And I could share a million stories like that with our own community and our people that have shared their success stories, as Sarah did earlier on. But just kind of trust me on that one for the moment. This works really, really well. What is the dream envelope? So here's the actual report itself, the document. I'm going to be sending you all a new dated version of that. The dream envelope, it's putting your subconscious on autopilot to manifest the things you want. So you don't have to keep controlling, you don't have to keep forcing, you don't have to keep struggling. It's getting really clear. And then there's that letting go energy, that surrender, what I call radical surrender, of just letting go, because the universe knows what you want now. You know what you want now. You know it's going to happen. You let go of it. And that's part of the process. Growing that new mindset by letting go of the need to control. So it's putting the subconscious on autopilot. It's also changing your own mindset, kind of going more easy on yourself. And often it comes down to being kinder to yourself, being more lighthearted, letting things happen more naturally. And just letting some of that pressure go, because we can be pretty mean to ourselves at times, and we can put a lot of undue pressure on ourselves that actually doesn't help. And a big takeaway from the dream envelope in general is actually sometimes the more you let go, the more you don't try and control things, the quicker they show up. And the more juice, the more energy, the more energetic resources your subconscious has to actually go and do its job, which is a really simple job, which is to get you what you want. It's also a deeply creative and empowering approach to personal development and change work, as you'll find. Me, I think everyone here probably knows me or has met me or we've talked before, but just so that I do kind of know what I'm talking about in this arena. This is the work that I do for the last 25 plus years. I mean, I've been studying this stuff a lot longer than I care to admit at times. I first had my own breakthroughs and was exposed to this work actually 40 years ago. literally 40 years ago. I know I look too young, but yeah, 40 years ago, I was 15 years old, so you can do the maths. But yeah, I've been doing this a long time, but actually professionally and working on it in terms of trying to put these tools, these transformational tools together for my students, my clients. I've been doing that for 25 plus years. And a lot of people here today have been on quite a long stretch of that journey with me. Sarah, for instance, we've been working together for I don't know how many years, but Sarah's been on an amazing journey, and that those kind of things are a privilege to be part of, to see that happen. And there's a few guests I know are here today that I've worked with years ago, and they've been doing amazing things. And yeah, this is what I do basically, and you get to experience the outcomes and the benefits that I've learned and experimented and tested, crystallized into things you can actually use. What we're learning today is an actual technique. It's an actual technique. We'll run through it today step by step, but you can go away and do it more slowly in your own time if you wish. And as I said earlier, you can use this with your clients. You're very welcome to take this document, turn it into an actual step-by-step process that you can easily do with clients, colleagues, your own family. We'll talk about this later on, but I'm sure Sarah's probably had her own kids doing this over the years. I know I have. And I've taught people ways to teach this to their families without, in a fun, you can imagine that the dream envelope, putting your dreams and goals on a piece of paper, wrapping it up, putting it in an envelope and posting it to the universe, or putting it under the pillow to sleep on so that the dreams are working away, the goals are manifesting while you're sleeping. That's a pretty fun thing for kids to do. They're a lot more open to this. Hey, and guess what? Kids are great at changing. Kids change in a profound and amazing way. And the younger the child is, the faster they're changing, the more they're changing. And their brain is literally changing shape every day. And they do profound things. I mean, learning to speak English or whatever, whatever the native language is for my kids, learning to speak English, it's like, you watch how fast that happens and how amazing it happens. Imagine if any of us could do that, every year, learn a new language, and don't just learn a new language each year, learn it with the right accent and the right, just subconsciously, talented and competent. It's an amazing concept. And, this is what we've got here today. The dream envelope is not like this mystical thing that you have to believe that it's true. It happens all the time. Okay. There's lots of ways that this phenomena shows up in our lives. The subconscious alarm clock. Okay. If you tell your mind you're going to wake up at 5 o'clock and it's going to happen, it will happen. It's that balance of desire and belief. I want to wake up at 5 and I just know I can do this. Once you've got that belief and once you've practiced, you don't need an alarm clock. You just don't. Your mind will wake you up when it's time to wake up. And you know what? If it doesn't, it's because it's not supposed to be so. The universe is saying, no, you need some rest today. And your boss might not agree, but the universe is saying you need a rest today. But in general, if you need to be up at a certain time, your subconscious will wake you up using this exact phenomenon. And what's really interesting is that if you do it often and it becomes a habit, the subconscious loves making habits for you. So the more often you use the whole kind of dream envelope way of processing the world and filtering the world, the more often you do it, the more natural it becomes. It's just habit. It's automatic. That's amazing. Moments of inspiration and insight. I think I talked about this earlier on. Those moments where you move from, I'd really like to do a certain thing to, wow, I'm going to do this. This is going to happen. A lot of I share when we talk about timeline stuff, which I'm not going to go into specifically today, but talk about the past and the future and how we process that and how we create change for our futures. I always talk with timeline, always use the metaphor or the example of Back to the Future. A lot of my students know this, but when Marty, the character in Back to the Future, goes back 30 years in time, he recognizes the mayor of his hometown. They go to the diner. He sees the janitor sweeping the diner, and he's like, that guy's the mayor in the future. And there he is in the past, just with a job as a janitor, a cleaner. And it's like the janitor guy's sweeping the floor, and he says, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. And Marty says, you're going to be the mayor. The guy stands up tall, his eyes light up, and he says, I am going to be the mayor. He suddenly knows I'm going to be the mayor. And that's when the dream envelope concept kicks in. Because once you tell the universe, this is going to happen, I'm going to be the mayor, it's already going to happen. Now, on a more spiritual level, depending on what your belief system, etc., maybe it's already happened before. Maybe it's predestined that you're going to be the mayor and the guy from the future is just the messenger. I don't want to go too far down that path of thinking, but just to say, there's moments when you just know something's going to happen, or that something's shifted. You just know, I'm going to do this. I am going to do this. And that's part of what we're talking about today. And then there's the RAS, the reticular activating system. This is part of your physical apparatus. It's part of your brain. Also, there's a lot of spiritual associations with the RAS, and that it's developed that it works on a spiritual level as well, and insight and intuition and synchronicity. A lot of that stuff comes from this part of your physical being. Keeping it simple, the RAS is just the part of your brain that looks for meanings and patterns. Okay, so I've talked about the red room effect. That kind of spoils it in a way. So let's think about the red room effect. Everyone here, depending on what kind of situation you're in now, what environment you're in now, if you close your eyes for just one moment and keep your eyes closed just for a moment and think about that room or that environment that you're in right now, without opening your eyes, have a think about how many green things are in that room. How many different shades of green, how many different kinds of green, how many big blocks of green, little tiny blocks of green are in your environment. And just have a think about that for one moment, and then open your eyes and look around the space. Look around where you are right now, and there's a very good chance you're going to start finding bits of green here, there, and everywhere. And if you don't, just walk out of the room and look outside. You're going to find so much green that you didn't even know was there. You hadn't noticed because it's been happening subconsciously. But now that we've talked about it, you'll start seeing green everywhere. And if you want to, you can tell your subconscious that that's what you want, and it will keep finding green everywhere. The example people always give with the RAS is about seeing a particular kind of motor car or vehicle. Like you might think, oh, there's this particular kind of motor car that, automobile, whatever, that I'd really like to have, and you don't see them very often. Well, guess what? You're going to see them non-stop for the rest of the day. You're going to see them everywhere. The other example, I know Beck was talking earlier on, and Beck works with pregnant women sometimes. I think that was one of your specialist areas you used to work with, Beck. I remember hypnobirthing and things like that. And I think Sarah, probably you do some of that work as well. And I know that it's a great way of it. It's something that women who are pregnant for the first time, and once they're in that space of being pregnant, they start seeing pregnant women everywhere, and they're like, I didn't know there were so many pregnant women around. My wife will tell me this story. It's like, I didn't realize. I thought that there was hardly anyone. And then suddenly I walk down the street and they're everywhere. And it's the same with anything. Once you're tuned into something, once your subconscious is tuned into recognizing a pattern or a specific thing, it's everywhere. Nobody has this haircut. And then suddenly, wow, no, actually everybody has that haircut. It's whatever it is. So we find what we look for. And with the dream envelope, it's really important to understand you're telling your subconscious what you want, and it will do its job. It'll start finding it everywhere for you, in very practical ways, as well as slightly more mystical ways, let's say. This is my background, and I know you'll notice we've already had a couple of people here working as hypnotherapists today. That was my background, back 25 years ago. And for a long time, I did that kind of work, helping people with things like stopping smoking, weight loss, helping people with phobias. Used to have a lot of people with biting nails, or not being scared of flying, being scared of driving. Actually, lots of different things like that. And my work, the direction that I went in and the path that I followed that brings me here today is I work with a lot of people that have got big goals, big dreams, people that want to grow businesses, people that already have businesses and want to make them amazing and spectacular. And it was always my way of thinking was, well, people that have got those kind of dreams and the blocks that stop them from succeeding and the fears that stop them from succeeding, why wouldn't that be exactly the same as stopping smoking? Surely it would be exactly the same. If you want to remove a phobia because, you're scared of spiders, well, people who want to be successful in their lives, or they want to grow a business, they want to, put their dreams into reality, they've got fears, they've got things that stop them. So why not remove those fears? It's exactly the same thing. And that was my thinking. If you can get the subconscious to tell you to breathe in and out, you can get the subconscious to make you wake up at 6 o'clock a.m. or 7 a.m., or if you can get the subconscious to give you little messages when you need to know that there's something scary out there, like, to hear the sound of a vehicle approaching, so you stand back and don't try and cross the road because there's a noise. The subconscious is constantly doing all these things for you. The subconscious can change a habit of a lifetime with smoking or comfort eating or anything like that, or a phobia. Hey, why can't it do other things? That was always my way of thinking. That there's a lot of people out there, and obviously over time this has become a big news in certain arenas. If you show me an Olympic athlete, for instance, someone who's won a gold medal at the Olympics, I'll show you someone with a really great mental coach, sports psychologist, peak performance coach, whatever. I'll probably show you a whole team of them. Okay. So, and that's the other question. If people right at the top are using the things that I'm teaching today, if really successful athletes, performers, business people, if they're already using this either naturally or because they've been shown it by a high performance coach, why shouldn't everybody learn that? Why shouldn't we all learn this? Why shouldn't we all have the same tools? Most successful people in history use this exact technique. Okay. And this is the other thing I realized. Wow, it's so simple. It's hiding in plain sight. When you hear these guys being interviewed or you read their autobiographies, it comes up again and again and again. And I've just picked 3 historical figures, but I was watching recently the Simone Biles documentary, and she's just won a bunch more gold medals and come back from massive adversity and challenges to become an Olympic champion again. And it's like when you hear her being interviewed and telling her stories, she does this stuff, and she does it, I think, partly because she's a champion and it's hardwired into her way of thinking, but partly because she's been taught it. And she's got great coaches and therapists and mental trainers, whatever, that have helped her to learn these techniques. And it's exactly the same. This is what's going to go to bed at night. This is what's going to happen. Wake up in the morning. That's how the day goes. Okay. Sounds simplistic, but you'll see there's an actual process to it. So we've got Thomas Edison here. Thomas Edison, whenever he had a problem, whenever he had a challenge, he would tell his subconscious mind, I need a solution. He'd go to bed, wake up in the morning. Hey, another great invention. That simple. And that's on record. That's not me saying it. If he invented something, you can guarantee it came from a challenge, a problem, a dire need, anxiety, whatever, from the night before. He's just said, that's okay. I'll dream on that. I'll wake up in the morning. I'll know what to do. And it happened again and again and again. Winston Churchill, the same, although he used to do this in the afternoons, apparently, and he used to drink champagne and smoke lots of cigars. So that might have been relevant as well. But if you cut through that noise, he used to have his afternoon naps, and he used to, whatever, this guy was carrying some of the biggest challenges of the world on his shoulders. He felt, let's say, a great sense of responsibility that he had to have ideas and breakthroughs. But he used to have his afternoon nap, and he used to tell his subconscious mind, going to go and have a nap. I'll wake up in the afternoon and I'll have some answers. I'll have some ideas. There they were. Okay. And the great thing with this, and all psychological kind of metaphysical, whatever approaches to change, you can see successful people using them, and you can kind of step back from that and say, well, what are they actually doing? What are the main pieces here? Really important caveat that I really want to bring up is you might not like some of these people. There might be people who are more your superheroes. These aren't my superheroes. They're just historical figures I've grabbed for evidence. But you could go and find your own heroes, your people you really resonate with, and you'll get the same. You'll see the same stories. Okay, so just because we talk about modeling. Just because you're modeling someone that you might not like personally, or they might not resonate with you as a person, it doesn't matter. If they're successful at something, there's something to be learned. Okay. Guy in the middle, Walt Disney. I love to tell the story of Walt Disney, that the early days of Disney, they were in massive financial strife, and they needed a success. Him and his brother, they needed to have a success. They didn't know what that would be. They didn't have an idea. They weren't sure which way to go. And he went and slept on what to do. He went to have a sleep. I'll wake up in the morning. I'll have an idea. Same exactly. The Thomas Edison effect. And he had a dream about his a story that his grandmother had told him, and she was from Russia, I think, or Russia, or somewhere in that part of the world. So it was an old European folk tale that she told him as a child, as a very, very young child, about the 3 little pigs. And he woke up in the morning with this thing in his head of the 3 little pigs, and he couldn't remember. It was a vague memory of childhood and his grandmother and her telling him this Russian folk tale, wherever she was from, and so he had to send one of his researchers to the library, and they had to go and do this research and find out what on earth is the 3 little pigs. And sure enough, they found the story, and it became their first blockbuster, made the Disney, the success story. And, it's a great story, and it came from a dream. And not only did it come from a dream, it came from a dream that was requested. I need an answer. We need an idea. We need something. So, if you're not going to bed every night and telling your subconscious what you want it to do for you, what answers you want, what solutions, what breakthroughs, or, this is what I'm trying to get, this is what I'm trying to get to, subconscious mind, please help me with this. If you're not doing that on a regular basis, and it doesn't have to just be the dream thing, it could be go for a walk in nature for an hour. But rather than just having a lovely walk, which in itself has health benefits, it's very, very good for you. It's very restorative, whatever. Going for a walk in nature is a lovely thing to do. But why not, for a bonus, throw in a request to your subconscious that by the time I've had this walk, I'd like a bit of a breakthrough with some area of my life that I need a breakthrough. Why not? Why not have a bonus? You're going to need a pen and paper for this. I did hopefully send out an email earlier saying to have pen and paper, but so ideally, every time you run through this, you need a little notepad and a pen. And I know about saving the trees and everything else, but because it's the dream envelope, there's a little bit of a tree footprint with this one. But you could get recyclable paper or whatever. There's always a way. Instructions. Step 1. I'm going to try and get through this as quickly as I can, so it make this a lot simpler. The chariot of life. I came up with this idea. A lot of coaches talk about the wheel of life, breaking your life down into these different segments. If you play Trivial Pursuit, you'll know this looks like the Trivial Pursuit board. I like to think of these all in different colors, these wedges, pieces of the cake, whatever. You don't need to get this complex. To be honest, rather than thinking about your life as one thing, think about 3 or 4 different areas of your life at least. Like could be your professional life and your personal life is a great way to split that cake, split the pie, 50-50, personal, professional. But then within professional, it could be skills and tools that you need to learn, but it could also be business growth. Or for those of you that are thinking one day of having your own business, it could be business ideas, research, breakthroughs. So it could be a business segment, it could be a professional segment, it could be a personal, and then it could be a money segment, it could be a health. If health is a very important thing right now, if that's something you're focused on, you're going to want to have a goal. Friends and family, social, romantic, travel, could be anything. But whatever's relevant to you, pick a few segments of your life where you'd like to have a goal, because what it does, it forces you to be more specific. Rather than just saying, I want to have a happy life, which is great. If you have a section for travel, it's like, I want to have a happy life. But what does that mean with travel? Well, it means I want to have a really nice holiday, vacation, trip, adventure this year. And I'd like to go to a certain place. The more specific, the better. Use the structure in the future. So in the future, and then the present tense. Now, I'm not going to spend time talking about this. This is to do with timeline and language patterns and this is what successful people do. They naturally use the right kind of language, not just in the external world, but in their own inner world. They structure their language correctly and set themselves up for success. And a really great language structure is, in the future, I am. Okay, so rather than saying, in the future, I'm going to win the gold medal, which again, I don't want to go too deeply into this today, but it stretches, it makes you have to reach in a way that can be off-putting and actually causes you to procrastinate, causes you to freeze. Whereas if you say, in the future, I am a champion. In the future, I am the champion at a certain thing. Or in the future, I have 10 clients in my calendar every week. In the future, I have 10 regular clients. In the future, I am a successful trainer. I am a successful public speaker. Anything like that. It's just, I know it's not particularly specific, but it's the structure. You're not going to, you are. Okay. Because one of the things, again, I don't want to go too deep into this. I think if I've talked too much in the past about affirmations, the biggest affirmational problem is when people are lying. Okay. Not in a negative, nasty way, but when they're lying to themselves by saying, I am this, when they're not. I am happy. If someone's sad and they say, I am happy, the subconscious detects that that's not true, and it scuppers the magic. Whereas if you say, in the future, I am happy, there's no argument with that. You can't say you're not, because you don't know, because it's not the future yet. So if you say, in the future, I'm happy, you've got every right to say that. And guess what? The future starts now, because even in the last sentence that I delivered, the future has appeared. Okay? So again, don't let this mess with your brain too much, but future's whenever you want the future to be. But by safely, and this is like posting the dream envelope, by taking that dream envelope, and rather than saying, I am happy now, I have all my dreams, and your subconscious saying, no, you don't, rather than having that internal argument and conflict, you have that in the future. I have achieved all my dreams. You're posting that message, that affirmation into the future. Hey, it doesn't have to be 10 years. It can be a week, it can be 2 weeks, which we'll come to. So like a specific one, let's say I've said in the future, I found my purpose. If your goal is to discover your true purpose, your affirmation for the dream envelope is in the future, I have found my true purpose. And that can be a year, that you safely put it a year in the future, and I have found my true purpose. Okay, so one goal on each piece of paper. So you might have 3 pieces of paper. You split the page into 3 and 3 little things that you're going to post to the universe, as it were. And each one, 3 to 5 pieces of paper, each one a specific goal in a specific area of your life. But rather than saying, like a prayer or a wish list for Santa where you say, I want to have a bicycle. It's like, no, it's not what I want. In the future, I have a bicycle. I don't know if anybody's got a bicycle as their goal, but whatever. That would come under the health and sports or health and fitness segment. Anyway, part 2 of the Chariot of Life. Same thing, but what you've done, and I'm going to rush a little bit, so please don't feel you have to keep up. You can do this after we finish. But it's just important you understand the steps. These are the shorter term goals, but they have to relate. So you put each of it on the same piece of paper to its corresponding goal. So you take each of those 3 or 5 pieces of paper where you've written your longer term in the future, I am type goal, but now this is much sooner. This could be a month. Let's say the big one is a year. This could be a month. It could be a week. It could be a day. But you're bringing them forward. You could set up what I call dominoes. I do this with my business clients a lot, where we have dominoes where you actually stack the domino goals. So when you press your action of the day, it creates a domino effect in your mind of leading. Your day goal is aligned with your week goal, with your month goal, with your year, and then the whole thing's like a domino effect. But don't worry too much about that at the moment. Just have that longer term one and now do a shorter term one. So you've got where you had 5 longer term, 3 longer term, you've now got the same corresponding shorter term goals. And the structure here has changed. Now what we say is soon I will have, in a week I will have. I know it sounds contradictory, but we want that stretch now, because this should be worded so that it creates some energy, some momentum. The opposite of procrastination. Actually, in a week, I will have done some research. In a week, I will have made a phone call. This is what we call micro commitments, because we want to actually do something. And this shorter term message to the universe should not only clarify what the next step is or what the next milestone is, it should also make you feel like I want to do something with this. I actually feel pulled towards it. Whereas the longer term one maybe feels more like a dream at the moment in the future. This is more, I really want to do something about this. I want to make a phone call. I want to find out how much that trip would cost. I want to find out, where my local yoga studio is, because I'm not committing yet to going and signing up for my yoga class, but I'm getting excited now. So I feel like I want to pick up the phone and just find out what day the classes are, or how much it costs, or if they do any special programs. I just want to find out a bit more. I hope that makes sense. Whereas, the longer term one might be, hey, I'm really great. I'm doing yoga all the time and I feel awesome and my health is fantastic. That could be the more longer term. This one is like, soon I will have found out more about it. And like I say, that should drive you to start making these micro commitments to the universe of, I'm going to do my bit here. I'm going to make some phone calls. I'm going to get excited. I'm going to walk down the road. I'm going to give this a try. And the universe is like, great. I'm going to take care of the bigger picture. Don't you worry about that. Okay. So these should be specific, personal, exciting. So you should have, on the left, I've got 3 goals. On the right, I say 5. It doesn't matter. Whatever you feel, I always compare transformation and change work to weight training, fitness training, weight training, and lifting weights. How many weights do you want to lift at the moment, and how heavy do you want them to be? It should be a bit of a stretch, but don't overwhelm yourself. Don't short circuit yourself. 3 goals is fine. 5 is better, but 3 is fine. Whatever works for you. What you'll find and what the universe will make very clear to you over time is they're all connected anyway. They've all got a connection. They all come under this umbrella of this bigger energy. Again, don't worry about that now. Just be aware that it's a thing. So you should now have 3 to 5 pieces of paper, and each of them has got a longer term, in the future I am, and a shorter term, soon I will be, at this stage. Okay. Again, there's probably a lot more detail in the report, which I'll be sending you a link to so you can read more. But this is enough. This is enough to do the technique to get moving. And then there's another step. The next step here, now you've got these pieces of paper, You've got to ask yourself, when you look at each of those 3 to 5 long-term and then short-term goals, intentions, dreams that are not yet a reality, however you want to word it, when you look at those, you've got to say, what would make them, are they 10 out of 10? Or even better, are they 11 out of 10? They should be 11 out of 10. When you say to yourself, how exciting is that? That should be 11 out of 10. That should be so exciting, so uplifting, so energizing. If it's not, you've got to ask yourself, what do I need to do a bit of polishing here? Polishing, this diamond has come out of the earth as ore. It's all mucky and encased in whatever. And you just need to chip away and shine it and polish it. And this is the first stage, is like, get those dreams, those goals, those outcomes, those intentions, get them to 10 out of 10 at least, ideally 11 out of 10. Like, I am that excited. I really, really, really want this, especially with the shorter term versions, because they're the ones that are going to drive you to make those micro commitments and to actually start magnetizing towards what you want. Next step, actually, this should say step 5, apologies, because this is the next one. This is about the belief distinction. This is about what you believe. Like, when you look at those beliefs, when you look at those goals, when you look at the things you've written down on your dream piece of paper, how much do you believe this is going to happen? Now, you can't always get to 11 out of 10, but you want to be pretty close to 10. You want to look at that and think, yeah, that could happen. That could definitely happen. You may not have certainty yet, but you've got an inkling. You know what? I think this is probably going to happen. That feels like something that's going to be real in my life 12 months from now. And then when you look at the short-term ones, like a week from now, I will be phoning the yoga studio. A week from now, I will be buying my bicycle and getting fit. A week from now, I will be phoning an old friend and meeting up and having that discussion, whatever it happens to be, and that should feel very relaxed. That is going to happen. I'm going to do that. I know I am. Going to have to shuffle a few things, going to have to make a couple of arrangements, going to have to change a couple of things, but I'm going to do it. It's going to happen. I know it's going to happen. Because what's really great in life is when you have that feeling of, I don't exactly know how it's going to happen yet, because there's a few things I got to work out, but it is going to happen. Okay, and that's 10 out of 10. That's 10 out of 10. At the moment, with the longer term ones, if you're at 9 out of 10, that's okay. And there's always that balancing act. There's always that set of scales, like the Libra scales. Desire on the one hand, how much do I want it? Belief on the other hand, how much do I believe it's going to happen? There's always a bit of give and take. Most people believe if they went on a 10-mile walk now, if you walked for 10 miles, most people believe it's possible I'll find $1. So someone will have dropped $1, or I'll find something in the hedgerow or whatever. I'll find something in the side of the road that's worth $1. I will be $1 richer by the end of that walk. But how much do they want to go on the 10-mile walk to find $1? It's like, well, I don't really want, I don't really want that. I'm not really very excited. So the desire is low and the belief is heavy. Whereas if you say, well, if I go on that 10-mile walk, I'm going to find $1 million. Well, the belief tends to come crashing down. And whereas the desire is like, yeah, that'd be cool. If I knew that was true, I'd probably go on that 10-mile walk. Okay, I'm just showing you how that balance can shift. So steps 3 and 4, steps 4 and 5, you might need to go back and forth a little bit. And it's like a negotiation with those goals. You want to make them so you really, really want them, but you also want to make it so that you really believe it's possible. It's a balancing act. Couple of quick distinctions and then we'll finish here. But the bargaining one, I've talked about this quite a lot, but I think it might have been before we started the presentation. So I'll just reiterate. The universe is a creative force. The universe does not want you bargaining with it. Okay, don't put conditions on. Don't do that. Just tell the universe, this is how I want to feel. This is what I want to happen. This is where I want to be in my life. This is how good I want to feel. And just let the universe do its magic. You do your magic. The universe does its magic. It's rocket fuel, it's just an explosive force. The flexibility distinction, very similar, but this is more like, hey, let's build some flexibility in. Like a lot of people, they're setting up their business and it's like, I'd like to be a coach, or I'd like to have a very specific business and this is what it's going to look like. And hey, what's it going to feel like when you have that success? What's it going to feel like when you have all your clients, when you are waking up every morning doing what you love doing and life is great and it gives you the freedom, the flexibility to have the life that you want to have? Well, let's say it turns out slightly differently. Let's say you actually sat down and wrote a book as part of what you were doing and that book became a bestseller, or you had a YouTube hit or something happened and you kind of went in a slightly different direction, but it got you to the same outcome. Hey, That's flexibility. I'd like to give you some stories and examples. They're just not coming to mind immediately, but I'm sure when we do Q&A later on, I'll give you lots of examples of where people went in a slightly different direction than they intended. There's a lot of businesses like that. I mean, I'll give you one example. PayPal. PayPal became an absolutely massive business. A couple of famous founders. Peter Thiel was one of the founders, and Elon Musk was involved in PayPal at the beginning. It was a huge success story. What's PayPal? It's an online bank. Correct? PayPal's a bank that happens to be online, and they did a joint venture with what's it called? eBay. We don't have eBay, we have a different version, but eBay they didn't have a way of selling with credit cards, I think was the story, and PayPal gave you the ability to buy on eBay with a credit card or something like that. And so it just became a huge success. But that's not how it started out. Those guys, when they founded that business, they were building some geeky encryption software, privacy software, encryption software to make it for security. It was very techy, very Silicon Valley, nothing to do with banking specifically. They weren't building a bank, put it that way. Hey, things changed. Were they happy with the outcome? I'd say they were pretty happy with what happened, and all that work was a success. It just wasn't exactly where they thought they were going. They headed in one direction, they ended up somewhere else, but the outcome was the outcome they wanted. Celebrate in advance. This is really important. It's one of the energies that people forget. Hey, when you launch a new boat, do you wait until you've been on your journey around the world and then you break some champagne on the side of the boat? Or do you throw that bottle of champagne against the boat before it launches on its first voyage? We all know the answer. We celebrate, the champagne comes out first, before we launch the dream, before we launch the new adventure. So with the dream envelope, once you've written down all of your goals, your outcomes, and really kind of focus on those, make the pictures. Don't just say, I want to be on a beach. Say, I want to be on this beach. I don't know where it is, but it's very hot and lovely. And when I look out at the ocean, it's blue, azure blue, just gorgeous color. When I look down at the sand, it's white, and I can feel the warmth in my toes on walking along the beach. I can hear the waves, all the different modalities, all the different senses. You kind of close your eyes and it's just the most beautiful place you want to be. That's the kind of way that you word these affirmations, these future goals. But let the universe decide which beach. You don't have to. You might know which beach, but if you let the universe play around with it, you might get some nice surprises. And also, you might not want to go to a beach. You might want to go to a historical city and go to art galleries and museums, or you might want to go on a retreat somewhere amazing. Hey, this is personal. You do what you want, but just make it really real. All those different sensory outcomes, etc., and celebrate. Fold those pieces of paper, put them in the envelope, seal the envelope, write whatever you want on the front. You might want to do some lovely pictures and art and things like that. Hey, whatever you want to do. I've seen people decorate these up really nicely. I was going to say bling them up, but just decorate these envelopes all beautifully with pictures and colors. And then what you do, just put it away like John Assaraf did. Put it in a box. Hey, and I don't want to tell you that's what he did. I don't know. He can tell his own story, but that idea of just put it away in a box, post it to the universe. A really good one is to take that envelope and put it under the bed, under the pillow, or even better, just under the bed, and just sleep on it. Just let go. Celebrate what's going to happen. Let go. Hey, and then maybe 12 months from now, open it up, have a look, and with flexibility, look at what's worked, what's manifested, what hasn't. The things that have, great. The things that haven't, maybe different things have happened, or maybe there's a message from the universe that, hey, we need to do this again. Need to rethink this one. But what I can tell you is incredible things will start happening from day one. Incredible things. And the more you forget about it, the more you let go, the better it becomes. So that control thing is worth thinking about as well. I want to really, we'll do questions in a moment. And it'd be really good to get some feedback from you guys, some specific questions, and we can talk really granularly about people. If you've got some questions to do with business, to do with ideas, brainstorming, breakthroughs, things that are blocking you specifically at the moment. I've got stories to share. I've got ideas I can share, and we've got a really great mastermind group here that will come to the table and help you. We've got some specific experts here today in areas that are way out of my comfort zone. So we might get a few people involved. I hope you've enjoyed that.
We hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Transformational Ripple Effect. If you got lots of value from this content, be sure to go and visit edlester.com/help to find out how the Transform 3 Mastermind can help you live your very best and most impactful and abundant life too.